Hey everyone, Lex here. I'm a solution architect with Bitrise, and today I'm going to go ahead and give you a demonstration of how to configure the Bitrise Build Cache, but particularly we're going to be looking at Gradle. I'm already here inside of a workspace, and in this example, I'm going to show you how to go ahead and configure Build Cache when you're using Bitrise CI as well. So as part of our platform, we also have the CI product. Although Build Cache can work with external CI solutions, the setup looks a little bit different. However, I'm going to guide you through the one that, once again, a little bit more with the platform parity is inside of the Bitrise CI. So when I look at CI, I have a set of different projects. We're going to be working with the Android DuckDuckGo project. And so when I navigate back to the build cache, you'll see that I already have some information in here, and this is just through previous testing and configurations that we've done in the past. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I went ahead and removed the Gradle build cache activation step. So that you can see how the process goes through. But when you have no information in here and all you have is to, the ability to set up a new connection, this is kind of the process of what you go through. So you can have a build cache trial, then you go ahead and configure this connection for the first time. When I click on that, you have Bitrise CI and other providers, as I mentioned. So if I stay with Bitrise CI as selected, it's going to go ahead and ask me about my build tool. There's different flavors of build systems that we support for Xcode build cache. For build cache in general, like Xcode, Bazel, Gradle, and there's some that are yet to come as well. And for the purposes here is selecting Gradle. I'm going to continue, and then it prompts me to select a project. Now, not all these projects are Android or Gradle related, so it is important that you select the correct one, since that's kind of what you've dictated on the previous step. Android DuckDuckGo is our selection here. You have the confirmation here, just if you want to verify anything else. I'm going to go ahead and continue, and you're prompted with a video tutorial or a set of steps that you can follow. And this is part of the setup, and so you could have started at the CI level. But naturally, it's probably better to set it up here because you know exactly what to do step by step. So it's asking me to add the activate build cache for Gradle step to my workflow. And this is in the workflow editor. And you want to do this before the step that you naturally want to speed up. What this means is essentially you want to activate the build cache prior to the actual commands or in this case, it's the Gradle build command. That is going to run your tasks. You want to activate it before that, otherwise that step won't benefit from the cache and the archive and the reusability. And so once you do this, you can go ahead and save the changes. And this is what I'm going to walk you through. I'm just kind of pre-selecting that I've completed these steps. So we're going to go ahead and navigate over to the CI side of things. This is in a separate tab. I'm going to go ahead and select the Android DuckDuck workflow. And as I mentioned, I've run this workflow in the past. So I'm actually going to go ahead and edit this same workflow. This is the one that I've gone ahead and removed the activation step. Previously, on my previous run, you can see that this is what the step looks like. So when I edit it, I'm actually going to add it before this. The way that my workflow is set up, it is broken down in a couple of different workflows that are chained together and dependent on each other. But you'll see that in these later portions, this is when I'm actually running like the Gradle runner step as an example. And so this is going to be the things that it's going to start benefiting, like when I'm running Gradle lint command and then the assemble. But since I have it set up in these stages, I'm actually perfectly fine with running the Gradle step here. And so I'm going to go ahead inside of the step library here. I could go ahead and type Gradle. However, there's going to be different steps that have that in common. So the previous instructions actually had the step ID for you in there. So when you paste that, it actually, even though it doesn't match the title exactly, the step ID will always go ahead and yield the specific result for that step that you're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. And it's pretty plug and play. The default values are already plugged in there for you. There's really not much to change here unless you particularly need some of this other information here, disabled or enabled. So I'm going to go ahead and save my changes. And I'm going to go back to this here. I go ahead and continue. And so I've added the cache step to the workflow. And now it talks you through the steps of warming up that cache. So you want to start using Build Cache, and you're going to go ahead and run the workflow where you just configure that step. And you're going to monitor the cache history at that point. And there's the overview page that we actually previously were on. Another recommendation that we have is to run the build at least 2 to 3 times. This is to properly warm up the cache, make sure that it's populated across different host machines that are going to be running these builds. 2 to 3 times is usually what it takes to really warm up the cache correctly, so that then subsequent builds after those 3 can go ahead and make sure that they find a match for your cached archive, and then you get a hit rate that will go ahead and assess, out of X amount of tasks, what is the percentage that we actually were able to reuse and avoid any redundant work. So I've completed these above steps. I go ahead and select done. It takes you back to this dashboard, but this is what it looks like. If I navigate back to the workflow where I save these changes, I can go ahead and run. I'm going to go ahead and start that workflow. And just to show you what it looks like without having you wait for the build to finish, you'll see that in the logs themselves, there's a couple ways to verify that what you did is correct. The logs in the first place for the step will go ahead and have some output that will go ahead and let you know that the cache is activated correctly. In this case, it's talking about Build Cache plugins. And if I navigate inside of my build, since I'm building this with Bitrise CI, if I navigate over to the Build Cache tab, you'll also see a list of produced invocations. And this is tracking the duration of the invocation, when it got started at. This is the command that run. So in the structure that I showed you in the workflow editor, that step of activation was set above the lint Gradle runner step and the assemble one. And so this is where you can see that went ahead and created 2 invocations here from the Gradle instances that were triggered. And yeah, you start seeing the cache hit rate. For the first 2 to 3 builds that you run, expect the hit rate to be 0, because it's actually comparing that to nothing. But after that, the subsequent builds, this is what you can expect. The higher the hit rate, the more that is being reused, and then the duration of the commands should go ahead and reduce as well, overall making your builds faster. So you can either check that here once again inside of the CI build, or if you navigate back to the Build Cache dashboard, this is where you would be able to see your invocations as well. You have the capability to go ahead and filter those out to make sure that you're looking at the exact one. Thank you, everyone. That is a demo on the setup and configuration. And we're very excited to have you guys try out Build Cache, particularly here, Gradle Build Cache. Take care, everyone.